let's review this then. It's a Ariston margherita A1635, made in 2003. So yeah, it's 22 years old and it's still here. Probably because it's had very sparing use over the last 22 years. So a couple of things. We'll start off with this. Yeah, you got purple streaks in the paint and the paint's turned yellow. This seems to be a defect with all indexes that were sort of made between 2000 with the Evolution and up to about 2007. It was only after 2007 that that kind of stopped happening. But yeah, defects and all, I don't know why. People seem to think it's detergent, but you've got purple streaks on this side as well. It's nothing to do, I think, anything with detergent falling down or even water. I think it's actually to do with the paint, and the purple is something inside the actual paint itself. Since there is purple actually in white paint to reflect UV to stop yellowing from happening. So it's almost like it's running away, it's getting loose and running away. It's really weird. Happens with all of them. Talking of yellowing, the front flap on the dispenser is more yellow than the rest of it, but to be fair, all the actual plastics themselves are still white, which is one thing that Indesits have always done as well, quite well. So, luckily, yeah. Right. Another thing you might notice as well with the design is that it looks awfully like a hot point. And yeah, effectively, this was the inspiration for the 2004 WF and WT's design, you know, from then on. 2004 Aristons, though, however, then got a round door. And yet, this design for Ariston has been running since the 80s. So, yeah, it's like Indesit already owned Ariston for quite a while at this point and decided that once the takeover completely happened in 2005, that they were going to use this design for their kind of flagship brand, basically Hotpoint, instead. Which is, I think, a smart move, actually, for doing that. Definitely moving forward, Hotpoints did look, I think, a lot more better by having the slightly different door. That being said, you look at this and you look at Hotpoint, and even through like mid-90s Hotpoints had this sort of weird round square edge, square sided door of round, you know, kind of thing. But it was definitely, this is a carbon copy on the WF and WTs. I'll show you more about this door in a minute because it's actually a bit of work of art on the hinges. Right at the bottom, got a kick plate. It's actually a standard Hotpoint kick plate, so undo it and it will lift off. Behind there, there is a filter because it's an Indesit. We've got a door handle. This is quite nice actually to use. So this actually has a bit of a chunk to hold on to. But then what happens is, you'll notice it's quite stiff. It doesn't glide open like, say, on anything else. Especially here at this point, and as they're pushing it back, it'll go stiff. The simple answer is because, well, of the hinges. Yeah, you ever seen them? Watch. How is that, eh? The drum. So there's the door seal. Look, we've got this kind of. We haven't got this door seal only for this Ariston's. We've also got this drum. It's an Indesit drum, alright, with Indesit drum paddles. However, it's got a defect. Ready? It's there. So, I have actually been having nicks, you know, put into the clothes, and it turns out that's why. It is a little bit sharp. So I do need to rectify it. It is possible, though, to put a new drum in, because it has a stainless steel outer tub and a a proper bearing brace. And also the bearing brace acts as a counterweight. There's no concrete counterweight in this either. It's just in the bearing brace effectively. So how cool is that? So yeah, apart from that defect, it's running fine. So there's our code, there's our serial number, there's the 312. So it looks like it was made in December 312. Yeah, December 2003. It was probably on sale at this point, because of course, obviously in 2004 they would have had the new Ariston range. Right, I've got a program dial with all its numbers. Temperature and spin speed. We've also got 4 wash modifiers. We've got pre-wash, stain removal, rapid wash, rinse hold, which is already in and won't come back out. Yeah, so they have a problem, these buttons. So these buttons are mechanical, but they're electronic at the same time. So all they're doing is sending a signal to the main board. Talking of main board, that dial, you turn it that way, correct, but believe it or not, it doesn't actually have a proper mechanical timer. Effectively, this is attached to the main board, and all you're really telling it is what program you want. It will act as a bit of a stage progress indicator, but let's say you select program 1, right, it'll run the entire wash and the first intermediate spin before it'll finally advance to rinse. And it'll do that by itself, and it'll do all its rinses before finally going on to spin, and then it will finally do the spin and then finally go to that. If you want to reset the program at any point, I'll come back to that before we start the program. Right, little book there. Open our drawer. We've got our fabric softener compartment here, pre-wash compartment, main wash compartment, and anyone will recognise this as a hot point detergent dispenser, and it is. Well, it's what they would have used effectively from 2007 onwards. Yeah. So the max fills are pretty much exactly the same: 300ml, 150ml, 100ml. The programs are here, and uniquely, if you look where the pre-wash section is, you've got this little thing here. It says 4, and it says for bleach. So what you can do is on program 1 is use that as the bleach compartment on your washing machine, or stain removal. So you select stain removal, put it in program compartment 4 for bleach or your stain remover, and do it that way. You'll obviously notice that there's no compartment with it. You can buy them. I've actually got one, so they look like this. There you go. That goes in there, and then you can put your bleach in, or your stain remover. And what you'll do at some point during the wash is just basically fill up through here as well. That's the only one I've got, and it came with a machine that I scrapped down, effectively. I was quite surprised it actually had it. Anyway, back to this. So there we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We've got our option buttons there. We've got pre-wash, we've got stain removal, we've got rapid, we've got rinse hold. And we've got our programs there. So program 1, white cotton at 90. 2, fast coloured at 60 degrees. That's your standard program for the machine. 3, A wash performance at 40. So this gives you an A wash performance, A plus energy performance at 40 degrees. It's 2 hours 20 for white cotton, 2 hours 10 for fast colours, A-wash performance 2.5 hours, program 4 40, delicates 40. That's basically non-fast cottons, and it takes 75 minutes. And then you got rinsing, spin, stop and reset. If you select the rapid wash option for cottons, they will lower the timings by 30% roughly. It changes basically between each one. It goes from 2 hours 10 to 1 hour 40. Non-fast colours goes down to around 65 minutes instead at 40. If you reduce the temperature, it will be shorter. The pre-wash can be selected for all the cottons as well as stain removal. Rapid can't be selected on program 3. Stain removal can apparently be selected with every program, but it doesn't actually state exactly what it does, other than it gives a better wash performance. No idea what stain removal actually does, realistically. I have used it, but I don't really seem to see any real difference. Obviously, you can select rinses and spin, or spin only, and then stop reset. Spin is at obviously 1600 RPM on the cottons, and this does too. Then you got synthetics, so you got white nylon at 60 degrees, an hour 40, minimum iron at 50 degrees, which is now 30. Delicates at 40, which is your acrylic cycle, it's 70 minutes. And then we've got daily wash at 30 minutes, 30 degrees. Again, you can add pre-wash to programs 5, 6 and 7, but not 8. You can add stain removal to 5, 6 and 7, but not 8. You can add rapid to 5, 6 and 7, but not 8. You can have rinse hold with all the synthetic programs. I'll show you on the dial in a minute. This one actually gives you fabric conditioning under the synthetic cycle. So basically, rinsing is going to be three rinses and final spin, whereas fabric softener is going to be one final rinse with fabric softener and final spin, and the spin only is at 800 RPM. It's quite a long spin. It does anti-creasing and stuff like that in between. And also got stop reset. Wool. So Pro 9 hand wash wool at 40 degrees, and it's the correct distribution ones. Then wool rinsing and wool spin at 600 RPM. Stop reset. Then you got silk, 30 degrees, program 10, delicates, high water level, gentle action, obviously no finishes with no spin. Rinse hold is available on the silk program. Stain removal is apparently there, but I don't doubt it. Same with wool. Stain removal is supposed to be there. I doubt it. Rapid does not work with wool or silk. Same with pre-wash. Doesn't work with wool or silk. Pre-wash will add on 20 minutes because it does a 30-degree pre-wash at the start before running the main wash. Right, we're running through the programs again. So, we got time delay, 12 hours, 9 hours, 3 hours, and 1 hour, and let's stop. Then we've got white cotton at 90. Here's your variable spin. We've got 1600, 1200, 1000, 800, 600, 500 RPM, 400 RPM, and no spin. Because it doesn't go in there, sometimes it goes in 1200, sometimes it doesn't. So what I do is put them to 12 or 1000. Then you can just turn it up. There we go. Ah. There you go, just done it this time. So that's 1600. Temperature wise, you can have max, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, and cold. There's pre-wash, stain removal, rapid wash. Cool fast cotton, A wash at 40, non-cool fast cotton at 40, Rinses and spin. Fast spin at 1600. Stop. White nylon at 60. Colour synthetics at 50. Acrylic delicates at 40. The daily wash at 30. Rinses and spin. Final fabric softener, rinse and spin. Rinse hold. So if rinse hold is selected like this, it's stuck, it will go to there. Once it gets to there, you can just basically undo rinse hold, or you can turn the dial to drain only. And you can actually do it whilst it's still on. Obviously, short spin at 800. Stop. 9 wool. That's still wool. I've tried it. It's still the same hand wash wool. This is a spin for wool and stop. Silk, wash, silk rinses, rinse hold, drain only. So if you want to just drain out the water at the end of synthetics, just turn it to drain. And stop. Right, so let me just show you what this does. So I'm going to like to spin first. Right, if I turn it on now, what will now happen? Right, triple flash. It's now registered the program, and door locks obviously now come on. Starting the cycle. If you want to end the cycle at any point, leave it switched on, just take it to a stop position, wait. There we go. So the flashing now means it's ready to be set to another cycle. Effectively, it means finished. And effectively, you don't really need to switch the machine off if you don't want to. If you want to set it to another program, you can either switch it off if you want to, or you can just basically do that, say, and wait, or turn it again. It won't start immediately. So, ready? There you go, triple flash, and we're now set. It's gone solid. Program is now selected. Want to cancel, go to stop. We've also, of course, got time delay. So with this, it's a bit more different. What you do with time delay is set it to, well, how many hours you want. Let's set it to 1 hour. Ready? Triple flash. Ready? So now what you do, it's in time delay mode. You now select a program you want. Let's say spin only, in 1 hour's time. Right, it's now triple flashed, again. The door lock's obviously gone off. And now, we've got a very long pause between flashes, the very long flashes. So they're different to the end program flashes. And effectively, it means that program is now registered with the time delay. Once the time delay is finished, the program will start. If we turn it to stop and just wait, ready, triple flash, and now we're at a much faster rhythm, light flashing to say that we can now set a different program. Anyway, we're going to use Rapid Wash. Set the temperature to 50, and then we're going to set the spin to obviously 1600. 1000, 12, 14, got it. 50 degrees. Then we're going to set it to program 1. Another thing to mention, it has hot and cold feed. Depending on what temperature you set it at will depend on whether it takes on just cold, a mix of hot and cold, or hot only. 40 and below, or think we use with stain removal, we only use cold only. With 50 and 60, it'll take a mix of both, and then with 70 and above, it'll take on just pure hot. Yeah, let's try and take on hot now. Yeah. We haven't got much hot in the tank, so it's not going to get particularly hot. I've got to also mention the cycle times for the synthetic slider dial with rapid wash. So with rapid wash, white nylon takes 60 minutes. White nylon takes 70 minutes. Fast coloured synthetics is 60 minutes, and acrylics take about 50 minutes instead with rapid wash. So. So we're heating. Well, they're well spun. So, what to give this out of 10 then? Well, you got to remember that Ariston was both cheap, because it was basically an Indesit, and Indesit was cheap, but Indesit also gave you a 1600 spin machine as well. Indesit also had their evolution machines. Seems very bizarre though that there isn't that many Indesits about. There isn't that many Aristons about either, but Indesit would have outsold Ariston way more. And their timer, it was the same timer, effectively, but because it had more gaps in it and stuff like that, it was also a little bit more like complicated in a weird way. And not as reliable, apparently, to a degree. Same buttons, really. The only difference is that these didn't pop out. They were what they were. You had, obviously, the 1600 spin W161. There was, obviously, a 3 and 5 version as well, for the options and additional variable spin and stuff like that. Obviously, you had the evolutions, which, again, never come up anymore. So, very few and far between. The trouble is that timer up there. People used to, if the timer starts going round randomly, or someone like tried to like forward or advance the timer without taking it to the stop first, the timer would just go round and round and round and round until it was, at the right position. And people would hold the dial in place. Don't know why, but then they would break the cog inside, and then it wouldn't work. Making it unreliable. Bearings can go quite quickly. They always did, especially on the 1600 spin versions. Spider could snap, and they did. And I don't think the lower Aristons had the stainless steel outer tub. Same with the Indesits. I don't think they didn't have the stainless steel outer tub. So to have this on the 600 spin, yeah, it's worth it. It should make it more reliable, and sure enough, it's still here. That was being said, it's been using like 1,000 spin for ages, or maybe, not entirely sure. Maybe it's just on 1,000 spin because, of course, the spring up dial didn't go back in for the 600. Whatever, but I managed to do that. 1600 spin results, yeah, they're pretty good. They're not as good as a 1400 spin of modern machines, but for the day, they would have been excellent, and they are. So I'm going to give this out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. It has its foibles, especially like these dials and etc. The wash pattern can be a little bit anemic at times, but generally speaking, it is okay. Certainly not up there. Certainly better than the Hoovers. The 6 and stuff like that. That being said, compared to other stuff of the day, you've got like stuff like the Beko Eco Care and Service. I think it's better than the Service, but I don't think it's good as Beko Eco Care. And the Beko Eco Care would have been around the same price, if not cheaper. So there we go. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below. Let's hear your thoughts about the machine. This will be put away for now, but it will be brought back out for other wash races in the future. Although I'm going to be a little bit perilous with... I'm going to try and bend that hole back. Hopefully try and like smooth it back up, dip it down so it's not as sharp. But we'll see what we can do. But other than that, yeah, it will be brought out for wash races. Right. I'll see you again. So, bye for now.